What's up, weirdos? I'm Felicia and I like scary movies, and today we are ranking every season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from worst to best. Also, if you couldn't guess it, this video is gonna be so full of spoilers. I'm gonna throw down some big plot points when I am talking about why I love each season or why I don't. So if you haven't finished watching Buffy yet, sorry, you might want to finish it up before you watch this, because I am gonna spoil it. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because there's a lot more Buffy videos to come. And let's get into it. I have a strong feeling that everyone's list is going to be very different from each other depending on how they watch the series, what kinds of monsters people prefer, what character arcs they prefer. All of that goes into this, but this is my ranking. In 7th place, aka the worst season of Buffy, in my humble opinion, is season 4. So much goes wrong for me in this season. First of all, Buffy is at her most insecure of the entire series. She's going to college, she's in a new place, she doesn't feel like she fits in, she's sort of losing her identity, she feels like she's losing her friends. It's a lot of bad. She's really just going through this transitional period that I think everybody goes through. I went through it myself and it wasn't fun, and I'm sure that's why I don't like watching it. But it is hard to see our hero so low for so much of the season. Second issue is this is the season with the initiative. So this is the government conspiracy season where we have an underground government conspiracy where the government is taking demons and getting different parts of them to make super demons and all kinds of bad government stuff. I personally think this worked much better in Joss Whedon's Cabin in the Woods. I feel like the government conspiracy stuff got really perfected in that film. In this season, not so much. I also didn't really like the big bad of this season, Adam. He's just kind of boring to me. Like, sure, he's kind of scary, but there's no flair, there's no personality, and the big bad typically has a big personality, and Adam just doesn't have that. And then there's Riley. And don't worry, I have an entire video planned to rank all the relationships on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because I'm crazy, and I've got a list. And Riley and Buffy are pretty far down on it. They're just not right together. I'm gonna get into their relationship in that video. I just don't think they're right together. I don't really like him. I think he doesn't understand her world, and though he loves her, just is not gonna ever fit into it. I love how I'm talking like they're real people. I can't. This season also houses my least favorite episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is Beer Bad. This is the episode where a bitter bar owner spikes all of the beer to turn college students into basically cavemen. And Buffy spends most of the episode running around like a cave woman, and it's just not good. Honestly, it feels a little embarrassing. I know that sounds terrible, but I'm assuming she didn't love doing this episode. I didn't like watching it. But weirdly enough, this episode was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Hairstyle. I don't know. It didn't win. Another thing about Buffy in this season that is just hard to watch is the kind of earlier relationship stuff she goes through in the season where she's seeing this guy Parker for a bit and he's seeing a lot of other girls, and that situation really lowers Buffy's confidence a lot and it's just really hard for her. And yeah, so she's going through all these big life experiences that everyone kind of gets through, you know, dating a jerk, having a weird roommate, not knowing who you want to be or what you want to do with your life, feeling lonely. Like, she's going through all of this stuff that I think is very common, especially in your freshman year of college. And I understand why that's important to show, but I just didn't enjoy watching it. Now, I should have said this at the start of this video, but I love everything about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, pretty much. I love every season of Buffy, so there's still a lot about season 4 that I like. Season 4 also houses one of the best episodes of Buffy ever, which is Hush. Scary dudes called the Gentlemen steal all the voices in Sunnydale, and we have 30 minutes of an episode without any dialogue. It is awesome, it is beautifully shot, it's an amazing episode, iconic. This season also has the fall of Oz. This is also tough. Even though I'm very glad Tara came into the picture, we love Tara, that's amazing, but Willow's Oz, he's a werewolf, he ends up sort of cheating on Willow with another werewolf, and then he leaves Willow to go find himself and deal with his werewolfness. But seeing Willow cry, there is basically nothing worse in this world than seeing Willow cry, and we have to watch that a lot this season. In our number 6 slot, we have season 1. And I feel like I have to keep saying this, even though I don't. I love every season of Buffy. I'm obsessed. I love them all. But here we are, season 1. And this is just because season 1 is them getting it together. It's very much a monster of the week series. They really set that up well. We don't know the characters that well yet. It's also only 12 episodes, whereas the rest of the seasons are 22. So we have less to go on in this season as well. This season also has some weird stuff that I don't mind, but the cheese man, I never really know what's going on with that. But of course it is awesome because it's starting everything off. We get to meet Buffy, Willow, and Xander, and Giles. We get to know and love them, even Cordelia, who we hate and love sort of at the same time. Xander meets his first lady demon that wants to kill him, of many in future seasons. Angel comes into the series. That's very exciting. I do have one complaint about this season that I'm probably going to do a video that's like the worst of Buffy, like the worst things in Buffy, which are not that many. But I'm going to mention this now. The Anointed One. Okay, I never really know what's going on with that. It's sort of a so-so concept. The Master, he's cool. I like the Master. The Anointed One, I'm kind of like, meh. And then also in episode 10, called Nightmares, there is a little boy in a coma who's causing all of these nightmares to come to life in Sunnydale. He looks a whole lot like the same kid actor that plays the Anointed One. So it's very confusing. Like, obviously I've seen the series a lot, so I'm not confused. But why did they cast these two kid actors that look almost identical to play two very different roles, one of them being very important? I don't know. It bothers me. Yeah, but overall I really like this season, especially Buffy, you know, with the blonde hair and this iconic white dress. She dies once at the end of this season and comes back, thank goodness. And she's got the crossbows. She defeats the Master. It's like her first big triumph, so that's also very exciting. All right, next up we have season 7, the final season. Very exciting. And now there are some things that are, amazing about this season. Caleb in the first, I think, is an awesome big bad. I truly love how they wrapped up this series. Like, the final 2 episodes, I think, are just perfect. I love everything about them. It's amazing. But when I was making this list, I was trying to think about the season as a whole. And a lot of season 7 is kind of like just chilling. There's a lot of waiting around. There's also a lot of really annoying potential slayers that are in the house, always being kind of annoying. But I do really love like how they let each character come to the end of their arc in such a beautiful and powerful way. Like, everyone got a really good end to their story, I thought. So I'm totally obsessed with all of that. This season also does a lot for one of my favorite characters, Spike. His arc, you know, he gets a soul at the beginning of this season, which is so beautiful. He does it for Buffy. It's beautiful. So yeah, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain why this is in the bottom half, because there are such epic moments in it, but overall it can get a little boring, kind of waiting around for the end. And there's a lot of talking about that in this season, where they're just all waiting to either live or die. And so there is a lot of that. Also, there's that one moment where they all rise up against Buffy, and Dawn tells Buffy to leave the house. Like, don't even get me started. That's gonna be in the worst of Buffy episode. Like, don't get me started on that.
I don't know if we can fight it.
All right, next up we have Buffy season 2. I love season 2. It's so nice because it's like there's so much more confidence in the series. The characters are more settled in. The plot lines get more exciting. Angel, this season is all about Angel. We also get Spike and Drusilla in this season, who are so much fun to watch together. Xander dates Cordelia. Oz comes into the picture. So Willow, who was once the very non-confident nerd, is now dating a cool guy in a band and is like coming into her own. It's very exciting. And of course, we have to take a moment to talk about Angelus. I mean, whoever thought of the idea of Angel sleeping with Buffy would make him lose his soul and become evil is like the most brilliant, horrifying thing ever, because it creates 2 things: a huge villain of the season, and also totally shatters Buffy's heart. So she's in this very vulnerable state. She's dealing with basically like horrible guy troubles that she's now also trying to save her friends from, but also still in love with him. It's so brutal. I think this season also starts to show off Sarah Michelle Gellar's acting. I think she's a star throughout the whole series for sure. But this season is where she really starts to like come into her acting in a stronger way. And David Boreanaz is so good in this season. He goes from that, you know, broody, sad boy, emo vampire to this like super evil, I'm going to kill off all your friends to torture you before I kill you, brutal dude. And also this season has Giles falling in love with Jenny Calendar. It's too much. It's too much. Okay, next up, and now we're into the top 3. It's exciting. In the number 3 spot, oh my god, we have season 6, which is arguably the most depressing season of Buffy in every possible way. It doesn't even have my favorite big bad or anything like that. There are certain scenes that I'm gonna talk about in another video that I wish weren't even in here, but Willow's journey in this season, it's like I can't not put it in the top 3. Allison Hannigan, I mean, she's incredible in this. When she becomes Dark Willow, which actually is much later in the season than you think it is, her pain over losing Tara and that turning her into Dark Willow, into a brutal killer, is so freaking intoxicating to watch. And I mean, man, this season is really tough for everyone. I mean, Buffy is raised from the dead at the beginning. She was ripped out of heaven, is now back on Earth, which she is considering hell. She starts up this relationship with Spike that is very toxic for most of the season, but you know there is something there. He is fallen in love with her, and even though he's a little stalker and creepy about it, like, you know there is something truthful there with Spike. And also, like, okay, the big bad of the season ends up being Dark Willow, but before that, it's the trio. They keep coming up. They're really, like, dorky 3 dudes led by this guy, Warren, and they're horrible. And they do all these terrible things, and Warren basically becomes a total psycho homicidal maniac. But it is interesting to me because this is a season where they are dealing with non-magical people being the big bad. So human beings doing terrible things, and there is something interesting about that to me. And of course at the end we still end up with Dark Willow, a witch, being the big bad at the end. It's still like, I don't know, I think it's an interesting concept to have human beings that may be able to dabble in some demons and magic and stuff, but are ultimately just people being the evil ones. And the next 2 spots, oof, this was tough. I went back and forth a lot on these, but I think I'm okay with my decisions. The number 2 spot goes to season 3. Season 3 of Buffy is so, it's like it's at its height. It's super polished. All the characters are awesome. We have a great big bad, the mayor. He's so freaking evil. And we have some of my favorite moments of the show that are kind of corresponding with Buffy and the gang being at the end of high school. So they have their prom where Buffy is given an award for being this class protector. She's being like thanked by all the students that she's like saved their lives a bunch. We have the graduation where the entire class rises up against the evil of Sunnydale together. It is just so empowering, so cool. And then we have Faith, who is a really cool character coming in as another Slayer that was called when Buffy died that one time. But she comes in and she's the bad girl. She's a bad influence, and then she gets real evil. And so it's nice to see like kind of that version of a Slayer's journey, which I'm assuming is not hard to get on when you have that much power and trying to figure out what to do with it. And Faith goes one direction and Buffy goes the other. And it's just, I don't know, it's a nice thing to watch. This season also introduces Anya, who I haven't actually mentioned yet, but is one of my favorite characters. She's an ex-demon, an ex-vengeance demon. But in this season is when she's really introduced. And it's funny because you can tell she was not supposed to be a long-term character, but she's just so great. And that was the same thing with Spike as well. Like, he wasn't supposed to be a long-term character, but when the audience spoke, the Buffy writers listened, which I say, good job. This season also has Wesley, who comes in as another Watcher, who admittedly I like more on Angel than I do on Buffy, but that's still fun. There's really just so much about this season I love, but definitely like that end of high school, big hurrah feeling is just so powerful in this one. It feels like they've all like grown up to a certain extent over the last few seasons and are making more adult choices and being bolder and being less afraid to fight evil. And it's very exciting. Oh, Willow starts doing witchcraft. It's great. And here we go. And our number 1 slot is season 5. This might be a surprise for some people, but I'll give you my reasoning. 1, because Glory is amazing. This god, ex-god, evil lady, so freaking cool. Such an awesome character. I love Glory being the big bad in the season. She's just awesome. But the overall thing that I love most about this season is this is when Buffy really comes into her power in a strong way. When she stands up to the Watchers Council, if I need to feel empowered, I watch that scene. It's perfectly done. This season is also the first one where we have Buffy dealing with a lot of real life issues along with her slaying. Her mom getting sick and eventually dying is so heart-wrenching, and having to see Buffy go through that is just, it's too much, honestly. It's so much to watch. But there's also something about how this show is dealing with grief that I think works really well. Like, I'm reminded of Willow changing her shirt a million times, and Anya being confused because she doesn't understand why Joyce isn't just gonna wake up again, because she was a demon, so she doesn't really understand. She hasn't experienced loss of human life before, and so there's all these different perspectives on grief in this episode. The Body is the one I'm talking about, and it's just very well done, tragic, beautiful, all those things. And yeah, and it's also probably my favorite because it's the first one I watched. My mom got me a season 5 Buffy DVD set for some random Christmas sometime, and that's how I was introduced to Buffy in the first place. And I think I watched season 5 like 2 times before I saw any of the rest of the series, which is a strange way to do it, but whatever. Oh, and the thing I don't really like in season 5 is Dawn. Dawn is just so annoying, but we're gonna get to that. She has moments where I like her, but she has so many moments where she's just so annoying. But anyways, okay, that's it. That is my ranking of the Buffy seasons. If you have a different ranking, please let me know in the comments. I want to hear every single person in the comments tell me your ranking. I want to know. We don't have to argue with each other, but I would love a colorful conversation. And that's it. Make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and I will see you in the next video. Have a nice screen. Bye.